This videocast is brought to you by Intervals, a robust agency management tool with a proven way to track your time, manage your work, and have your projects succeed. Go to myintervals.com to learn more. So welcome to the DPM videocast, where Kelly and I give our 5 cents on all things digital project management. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ben Aston, the founder of the Digital Project Manager.
And I'm Kelly.
So today I want to talk about Agile project management. And really, I just want to discuss what is Agile project management and what are the things someone who's trying to be an Agile project manager should know. So Kelly, what is your take on this? Like, is Agile project management a thing or not?
It is. I think that people think that they're applying it more than they actually are. When in reality, there's usually a fusion of Agile that they are working with. We've all heard of Wagile or whatever combination of Waterfall and Agile that they're using. So I think that it is a thing, and I've heard of agencies that apply it, but it's not as common. But applying different parts of Agile, very common. I think the Scrum ceremonies and sprint planning, these are elements of Agile that I think a lot of people use. It's just whether or not they use the entire Agile process is something that I think is less common.
Yeah, so let's talk about like the difference between, and people kind of put these in like odds with one another, but an agile project management is not planning the whole project up front and then executing through phases. Like that is what Waterfall is. When we plan the entire project up front and then we execute, it's kind of a gated approach. That is a Waterfall methodology. Requires lots of planning up front, then we execute each phase as we go. On the other hand, an agile project management approach is where we're iteratively delivering something that works. We're trying to deliver value, and we're trying to deliver value early. So we just need to be clear that when we're talking about agile project management, it's not the same as Scrum. It might be Scrum, but it doesn't have to be. It's not Kanban. And I think sometimes people use these words interchangeably. They think, oh, if someone's talking about Agile, they're talking about Scrum or they're talking about Kanban. But here's the truth. It's not the same thing. Agile just is all about delivering something iteratively and delivering value early. So what then, if that's what Agile is and that's what Agile project management is, Kelly, within that kind of context or environment, what is the role of the project manager? Because Scrum doesn't dictate to us what a project manager is. It's not even a role in the process, in the methodology. So what would you say the role of the PM is within that kind of Agile project management context?
Right. I think that they are the linchpin between obviously the client and the team, but it's really maintaining that communication and that flexibility and being a part of that sprint grooming and prioritization based on client feedback, needs, what they have communicated otherwise. So I think it's always staying on your toes, always being open to flexibility, making sure that you're fostering that environment with the team so that you're not creating constant dependencies that then push you back into that default waterfall process. So I think that what it looks like for a project manager on a daily basis is that, yes, you are in those stand-ups. You are constantly keeping your eye out for the need for prioritization or when things are going from one sprint to another sprint, but just constantly reminding the client, being there for supporting the client so that they feel like they can work agile too, because their part in it is just as important.
Yeah. And so, I mean, let's talk about and kind of unpack the Scrum methodology to start with, because you touched on a few of those things right there. So within Scrum, we have a backlog. So we've got a load of user stories or features that have been defined. And what we do is we create this backlog and then we prioritize what work gets done first. And we prioritize that based on what we think is going to deliver the most value. And so what you're talking about there is, as a project manager, we can help the product owner groom that backlog, decide what we're going to prioritize, what we're not going to prioritize. But there are other things that we need to manage as well, right? Like somebody needs to manage the cost. Someone needs to manage the overall timeline. We've got this Scrum Master role within Scrum, which is all about removing blockers and impediments to the team. But someone needs to take this overall ownership of what's being done and what's being delivered. And yes, in part that is the product owner. But in terms of managing the team, there is a role there for a project manager, I would suggest. And equally within Kanban as well, where Kanban's all about, okay, limiting the number of things you're working on at any one time to increase the overall throughput. And again, someone needs to manage the cost. Someone needs to manage that prioritization to make sure that the team are headed in the right direction, that they're spending the right amount of time on things. So I don't think that, some people would say, hey, no, there is no project manager. If it's Agile, there's no project managers. The team can be, they can coordinate themselves. What I suggest is, yes, there is a role for project managers in managing the costs, managing the timeline, managing the overall scope, particularly when you're working within a pro services environment. But Kelly, what is your view here? Like, in terms of, there's lots of debates. What's Agile project management? What makes it not Agile project management? But what's your take on Agile methodologies?
Right. I think the biggest importance is not to get stuck on any one thing, and to know that with the prioritization, that's going to change. And I think if you have done waterfall project management before, it's really hard not to get stuck on dependencies and say, no, we need this before we get this. But instead, maybe say, okay, this isn't ready yet. We're going to push that over and we're going to work on the next thing that we are ready for, and how to best manage your resources. And then again, to your point, managing the cost. I think with managing the cost, having a week by week tracking of actual burn versus what was held or budgeted for is so important. Having, monthly or bi-monthly budget checks is not going to work with Agile, because things are changing so much. I think one of the biggest project management aspects with Agile process is that budget management, because it is ebbing and flowing so much that you really have to watch that burn, or maybe you have to watch that underburn too, because, well, it's easy to overburn. When you are Agile, sometimes you might put something aside and focus on something else where your higher rate resources aren't being used, and all of a sudden your revenue is under where you thought it would be. So that takes up, in my experience on managing Agile projects, that has been the biggest focus for me, because that can get unreally fast.
Yeah, I think that's really solid advice. And I think as you're kind of hearing what Kelly's talking about here, I think the important takeaway is that there is no one size fits all methodology for Agile project management. You could decide to follow many of the elements of Scrum and do sprints and create a backlog and have a Scrum Master and have a product owner. But for me, I think what's important is that as project managers, that we're ensuring that we're delivering value for our clients. We're delivering value early and often, and that we're making the best use of their resources so that they're getting a return on their investment. That's why the project's worthwhile doing in the first place. So then in terms of process, I think what's important is that it's really lightweight, that it's not over-engineered and complicated, that it's a process that's accepted by the team, that the team get it and that they have ownership of it. They like the way that you're going to work. But it's also got to be evolving and flexible as well. Like, cognizant of the reality that every project, every team, every client is different. And we need to be flexible in the way that we engage with our clients and with our teams on our projects to deliver something that works. And really, for me, that is what at the heart of what Agile project management is all about. It's about doing what works, iterating on it, and getting better at the way that we do it. So I hope you find that useful. I wonder what you think. What is Agile project management for you? Is it a thing? Is it a misnomer? Is it a contradiction? Let us know. Tell us in the comments below. And if you want to get ahead with your work and in your job and in your role, I'd love it if you could come and join our tribe with DPM membership. Head to the digitalprojectmanager.com/membership. And you're going to get access to our Slack team. You're going to get access to a whole bunch of templates and resources, workshops, office hours, ebooks, and more. But until next time, thanks for watching.